watching the Flying Monkey Podcast.
All right, folks. Well, welcome to another episode of the Flying Monkey Podcast. And we're with Sam, and we're going to talk to him today. Tell us your story. Maybe give us the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and what you've been going through.
Sure. Well, I met someone some years back. I hadn't had any kids. She had a son with her previous husband, and when I met her, she explained how he was controlling and abusive and all these horrible things. And I was potentially naive and just kind of assumed everything she was telling me was the truth.
Yeah.
And over the years, I kind of noticed that we eventually got more serious with our relationship and moved in. And she had primary custody of her son, so I was obviously around him a lot. And so I started being involved in the conversations with her ex-husband when it came to co-parenting. And I started noticing that he wasn't really the problematic one when it came to co-parenting. She was always the one that would get upset when he would have a differing opinion and would start interrupting him, talking over him, and was really the one who wasn't co-parenting. So eventually we ended up having our own child together. And unfortunately, I had kind of realized the problems that I was kind of seeing in her behavior in our relationship and the toxicity. But I had heard about how men don't generally get access to their children when in the family courts. So I kind of stayed in the relationship for quite some time just because I didn't want to lose my daughter. And in hindsight, it might be a good thing because she was, very young. It wasn't until she was 2 years old that I had initiated us separating. And I think those 2 years were definitely important for creating a bond with my child before the parental alienation kind of started. So
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely, both parents have an attachment. A lot of the so-called professionals want to say different, that women have the only attachment, but no, fathers and mothers both are attached to their children from birth. So
in hindsight, I think maybe it was good that I stuck it out as long as I did. The relationship just got, I kind of held out hope that things would get better over time and that we'd be able to, but it got to a point where there's never any conflict resolution, no matter how many times I try to bring something up or have an honest conversation. I was dealing with someone who wanted to control everything and didn't want to take responsibility for anything. So unfortunately, I got to the point where I realized that it was probably better for my daughter to have a happy, safe, and a healthy environment at home half the time than none of the time. So I spent months kind of trying to prepare separating from her and get advice from people, talk to attorneys, and kind of get information. And so I eventually, after that, I separated. I had filed for a custody hearing already. I'd been told by men that you don't want the mom to file for the custody hearing and kind of be the one initiating that. So I initiated that first.
yeah.
And mom wasn't working. She had no source of income. So she lived with me for a few weeks after she still stayed living with me for a few weeks after initiating the separation and filing for custody. And I think she was kind of holding out hope that I'd change my mind. But once she realized that I wasn't going to change my mind, her whole tune changed. She became very combative, was trying to start fights and was trying to record me. There was even a day over my weekend where I wasn't able to really spend much time with my child on my first day off. So on the second day, I told her that I wanted to spend the day with her and I was going to take her up and visit my folks. And she insisted that she wanted to go with us, but she had been very resentful towards my mom ever since we split up. She kind of blamed her for whatever reason. So I didn't want to bring her up there into that. And I told her, our daughter's going to have to get used to not always being with both of us because this is the path that we're going down right now. And she didn't like that, and she ended up calling the police when I was getting ready to leave. And the police handled it well. They were very informed on what the legality of the situation was, that there was no custody order. There's nothing wrong with either parent taking the child and going and doing anything. And I explained the whole situation in detail to the police officer. They talked to me first when they showed up. And, he warned me that I should file a restraining order against her. But I wasn't trying to be vindictive. I just wanted to separate and go my own way and live my life. I didn't want to attack mom with any accusations or try to keep her from seeing her child in any way. So about a week or two later, mom kind of disappears with the child for a few nights, and cutting off communication essentially when I try to reach out and see when I can see my daughter. And I ended up having to file an ex parte. She ignored the ex parte, and then the following day I was served with a restraining order. And I went over, and that hearing was 3 weeks later. So I went from seeing my daughter, playing with my daughter, bathing her, changing her, taking care of her every day, and sleeping in the same bed with her for the first 2 years of her life, but not seeing her for over a month. And so it's been a long process. I filed for a custody hearing in 2022, towards the end of 2022, and it's still open and has not been resolved to this day. And it's just really the whole restraining order has been used as a weapon, used as a sword, not used as a shield to protect her.
Yeah.
She's kind of had free reign to really lie and say whatever she wants. And unfortunately, in the family courts, from what I've seen, they don't work off of proof. They work off of, I guess, who they believe is what one of my former attorneys said. And I think one of the issues that could fix all these issues in the family courts, one thing that could generally help would be if we change the definition of hearsay. Because I had one attorney, when I asked her, is hearsay admissible in family courts? I'd heard that it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And
It's
she
not
said, well, it
supposed to be.
depends. She says, well, it depends what you consider hearsay. If someone is sworn in front of the judge and they say something, that is not considered hearsay, even if there's no proof. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. It's right for someone to take advantage of the system by lying.
Yeah. One would think that the attorney can object to something that was said and say this is hearsay, and the judge can make a ruling on that even if it is testimony. But yeah, there's a double standard, and we've seen that in many different. I mean, I've seen it in criminal courts, civil courts, family courts, and we're seeing it in public with other stuff going on at this time too. So it's
Yeah.
really yeah, it's pretty bad. So what are the things, like, maybe a good question that I'd like to ask you would be what have you noticed or seen that the court does to prolong the case, or they don't do intentionally, not just to let it sit and drag out?
Lack of accountability, really. I showed up to the first hearing for this restraining order request at the end of 22, and I had video evidence, any evidence that I could have to disprove some of her claims that would at least show that we're dealing with someone that is at least partially lying, bare minimum. And she wasn't ready, claimed she didn't have evidence, didn't have it ready. And this is, we're talking 4.5 weeks after she filed for a restraining order, that she wasn't prepared and said that she didn't have her evidence ready. We went back 3 weeks later, same thing, didn't have evidence ready, had an excuse that the laptop that the evidence was on fried because it was plugged into the outlet during a storm, and they ended up giving her a trial without ever having to provide evidence.
Wow. That's amazing. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So is that restraining order still enforced right now? Do you still underneath that, or Did they
Well, we went to
solve that or
trial.
come to a conclusion?
Well, they ended up giving her a 1 year restraining order. Um, and it was supposed to expire here at the end of April. And then, and I had actually thought it expired. My previous attorney waited apparently 10 or 11 days to notify me that she filed for an extension. And, so, once again, saying a bunch of things that aren't true, having family members write letters of things that aren't true, and trying to argue technicalities that I wasn't supposed to be the one picking up my daughter at the police station for the last year and a half where the pickup drop-offs had been. Things like that.
Wow. So
So, so I'm in the
there is a
middle
court
of.
order. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say, so there's a court order from the family court for you to have visitations with your daughter?
Yeah, and I know that's rare for people that have a restraining order against them. A lot of fathers will get supervised visitation and they got to pay hundreds of dollars every weekend to have a couple hours through a third party. I was very lucky that I had, even during while we were waiting for the trial, I got a good judge that I feel like was reading the situation very well. Even though he ended up giving a trial, he gave me 50-50 until that trial, 50-50 parenting time. And so after the trial, when they gave the 1 year restraining order, the judge said that the 3044 presumption now applies and that the 50-50 parenting time is not acceptable. And so they dropped it down to 2 days a week, which, like I said, for a lot of people in my position, uh, that's significantly more than what they would get.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's, yeah. But the child does see, that's the thing they give us, or they give certain parents, that's men and women, they have to suffer through this same stuff. It just depends
Sure.
on who they decide to go after and turn into a bad person. But the child needs to have both parents on a daily basis, whether it be by telephone. So if they're given, the courts should, in my opinion, allow parents to communicate every day with their kid. So there's no reason you
Yeah,
can't
I
call
agree.
for 5 minutes and say, "Hey, good night, honey. Make sure you say your prayers and did you read Winnie the Pooh or whatever, you do, and just do a little playful 5-10 minutes before they go to bed. That would be
Yeah.
wonderful, and then you get your time, whatever it's allotted. I think they should really figure out better ways of doing it. But you've got parents that are basically, I mean, I'd categorize them as alienators. They're very insecure, unstable people that get very defensive and they treat the children like they're possessions. They're a human being that two people created. And history tells us for how long have humans been on the planet? 5-7 million years. It takes two parents to raise a child. So, whether they're together or not, the kids still need to have their parents.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Are you a victim of parental alienation? HopeInDarkness.me introduces a House on Fire Academy, the only online training program to help you rescue your kids. Become certified in the application of science-based court rescue skills. The program includes classes, courts rehearsals, proficiency reviews, inarguable evidence collection, motion development proficiency tests, and certificates. Sign up today and start the journey to getting your kids back.
So right now, are you seeing your daughter?
Yeah, I still have her the 2 days a week, and then I have
Okay.
one video call during the 5 days she's not with me.
Okay. All right. And how is your relationship with her? I mean, is she changed at all, or is she still, I mean, I guess I'm getting at the point that there's so many, I was reading some statistics of like worldwide, there's 300 million kids going through alienation and they end up turning around and start to reject parents and stuff. And so that's why I was asking the question, how does she still react to daddy and tell you she loves you and smile and all the fun things that you guys normally would have done or do when you're together?
Despite everything going on, despite kind of knowing that chances are mom's saying a lot of bad things about me, just like she did with her son about his dad in front of him all the time. Despite all that, I couldn't have a better relationship with my daughter. She loves
That's
me more
great.
than anything, and
Yeah.
she's always happy to see me. It's always hard taking her back because she's always upset and cries a lot. So
Yeah, I know
that's
how
hard to
that
go
goes.
through. But
It is. I went through
yeah,
I did go through the same thing. It's very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
that's what being a good parent is, saying, okay, well, it's time to go do this, and that's what you have to do. So do this, and we'll see you in a couple days. And it's heartbreaking to go through. I know.
It is. I
Um,
try to make it as positive of an experience going back there. I try to talk to her about it and make it sound exciting. And and it may not mean that there's anything too bad happening over there. It just sometimes kids, they miss the other parent. I have
yeah.
friends who are females, and I know they don't say bad things about their children's father. I know that they're in a happy, healthy household with their mom, and they've had that same experience when they come back from their dads. They just miss them a lot.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's going to be hard either way for the kids, even if
I know.
you do have two healthy parents.
Exactly. And it seems more rare as time goes by in today's era that you have both parents willing to be friends and work or at least just work in positive in conjunction with each other, what they call, I guess they call it co-parenting, where you just put on a happy face when you're together for a minute and just be good around the kid and support the child. And that's a lot of people can't do that, which makes it
Yeah,
really hard, and it's like you said, it's hard enough as when it's a good situation for them to have to swap houses or, go back and forth. But that's why, I think it's so important. Like my parents got divorced. I think I was around 12, but I was able to, my mom, we talked to my dad every day, you know, we knew what time he got home from work, and either he'd call us or we'd call him and say, hey, how'd your day go? What's going on? Did you eat dinner yet? Oh, we're eating now. Hey, we're going to go play baseball. Okay, bye. And he would like talk to us for a long time sometimes, or sometimes it was just 2 seconds. Hey, go out and play. Have fun, guys. I love you. Bye. And that's all it was. But we were in constant communication, and then, kids sometimes like, man, I don't want to go to mom's this weekend, or I don't want to go to dad's this weekend. I want to play with my friends, so that stuff happens, but that's the normality of life. And
yeah,
they would be flexible. My mom would say, well, hey, why don't you take them to dinner on Wednesday night, let them go to the baseball game this weekend, and we'll give you on the vacation, we'll let you have a couple more days. And my parents were like that, which was cool. And that's the way it should be, but the courts, I think, make it worse. I think they drag it out. The lawyers drag it out. They want to keep billing us. And like you said, like the one lawyer didn't notify you. I mean, what's with that? I mean, how you're obligated, someone's paying you to do a job. We need you to do the job. And see, we have a lot of blind faith in the system, and, hey, I got the proof here. Here it is, here's, they don't care. They don't want to look at it. They ignore it. And they want another, drag you out for another 10, 20, 30, $100,000. It's crazy.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, the courts and the judges, I'm sorry, the courts and the attorneys, they have a lot of financial incentive. They financially benefit when it gets dragged out, or when a working parent doesn't have as much custody.
What would you like to see change in the system to make things better for parents and for especially in the best interest of the child, which they're supposed to follow, but they don't?
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of ideas. In my situation, I think changing the definition of hearsay and making it to where they have to make decisions based off of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, that would have a huge impact alone. Um, I also wonder, I'm certainly not a legal expert. I wonder if we moved restraining orders out of the family courts and put them strictly in criminal courts, if that would have an impact on how many are handed out. Because unfortunately, once a parent gets a restraining order against the other parent, they have an incredible amount of leverage when it comes to custody in the family courts.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to be a tool used to yeah, to just another wedge to put between a parent and their child. And most
Sure.
of the time, the ones I see in family court, most of them are baloney. It's all hearsay, it's all made up stuff. And I'm not quite sure if it's the angry, evil parent that's doing it, or if it's the lawyers telling the parents, hey, you're gonna have to do this. I think I've heard both stories from people, saying, hey, we're gonna have to dig something up, in order for you to win. And they kind of get manipulated into doing it sometimes. But there has to be, the whole system needs a change somehow.
Definitely.
Because it's just being abused and misused, and the children are suffering, which means society suffers. And when kids are
Yeah.
traumatized and damaged, um, it can mess them up for life. And then you got a bunch of, upset, crazy maniac people running around, when they grow up, and that just continues it just continues the whole problem. And
Sure.
it's really sad.
Yeah, I agree.
So when you're going through all these, like when you're in the midst of like, wow, I can't see my kid for, because they got a restraining order, or the judge isn't making the mom, let me see her, or whatever it may be. And you're going through this, it's a very heartbreaking, rough situation that's just upsetting and traumatizing. And so then as parents, we start to search for help, or for guidance, or we want to learn and get information. I guess I'd like to say for you, what websites or Facebook groups or things that have you encountered, to help you learn and kind of get through what you're going through?
I think the biggest help was the a lot of the personality traits that I saw with my daughter's mom. Um, follows line Falls in line with what you would see from someone generally diagnosed with covert narcissism. And so kind of going down that rabbit hole and learning about people like that and learning about their behavior um, helped at least kind of explain what was going on and why these accusations were coming, and why I was kind of being attacked the way I was being attacked.
Yeah, they're just using the certain tactics to take children away from their parents or keep them away. And it's not right. It's not fair. And something needs to be done. So we just want to make a change and make things better. And, all it does is help the kids, which helps the world. So,
Sure,
it's
sure.
all about positive change and doing what's right. I mean, right and wrong, it just seems to be lost these days. And we need to kind of get back to it, it's such a simple
Yeah,
thing. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for doing this podcast. It definitely brings light to something that needs to be fixed soon.
yeah. Well, no, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, Sam. I really appreciate it. So we hope everything turns out good for you and your daughter.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, man. You take care. All right.
Thanks for watching the Flying Monkey podcast. Like, follow, and subscribe to our social media sites on Facebook, X, YouTube, Rumble, TikTok, and Truth Social. You can also go straight to our webpage at www.flyingmonkeypodcast.com.